fork of Team NHL, but as John said, excellent penalty killing on the part of Team NHL. Now let's go to our intermission studio and Brian Williams.
All right, Don Whitman coming up in this first intermission. We will talk with Wayne Gretzky. Gretzky figuring in the only goal scored so far tonight. And we'll also talk live with our federal sport minister, Otto Jelinek, about the tough and rather unfair penalties levied against our junior team, also against the Soviets, by the International Ice Hockey Federation. The score at the end of the first period here at the Colisée in Quebec City, the National Hockey League 1 and the Soviets nothing. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Harry Curry scoring, assisted by Wayne Gretzky and Esa Tikkanen. You told me earlier today if you could get through the first 10 minutes, you'd be very happy.
Well, it's a brand new hockey team out there. We have never played together, and you know, except for our line, nobody's even had a chance to be on the ice together. And you know, us three guys realized that, and we went out and we were fortunate enough to help us get a lead, and hopefully we can play a good, strong, disciplined game. And Grant keeps playing the way he's playing. I think we'll be okay.
I tell you, it's really been an Edmonton show so far, Wayne. Let me ask you, anything they have done that has surprised you? I know you looked at videotapes, you've only had 2 practices, but you've played against them going back to 1976.
Well, I think the one thing that they don't do that I have trouble understanding is they don't match lines. They keep playing 1, 2, 3, 4. They keep playing the same defensemen with the same forwards. They don't believe in matching lines. And you'll see Krutov out there every shift with Fedosov and Kasatonov, and they just keep going 1, 2, 3, 4, keep going in rotation, keep playing those same guys. And if there's anything that's different about their style, it's obviously that.
We kept hearing that this is a physical Soviet team. It's like the National Hockey League, not as fast, but it's tougher. Was it that physical out there tonight?
A little surprising. We expected to be more physical than the first period probably was. They weren't as physical as we thought they were going to be, but you know, the Soviets do a lot of things. Who knows, maybe that's the way they wanted to play the first period. Maybe next period will be different. What
about the penalty killing? A lot of people in this building surprised the penalties both to the National Hockey League, and you killed it very effectively.
Well, I think that, you know, we spent the last 2 days going over penalty killing, the defensemen and the forwards, going over all the 3 coaches. And, you know, again, you're familiar with people you play with. Yuri and I have killed penalties together for 6 years, and we're familiar with that. And the defense are a little bit new, but we're adjusting, and things went well for us.
There's been a lot of talk that the national hockey players, and let's be honest, were less than enthused about this. They were bored. It was a pain in the neck. I've been around you guys now for 2 days. It doesn't seem that way.
I think that during the course of the season, when the other players are talking about going to Phoenix and going to Florida, and where it's warm and it's a nice 4 days off, I think there's a little bit of resentment from the other players that they wouldn't mind a few days off. But once the players get here and they see how great of an honor it is to be here and how much fun it is, it's worthwhile being here.
Relate to our viewers what you told me yesterday about watching them practice. Tim Kerr, I think, was a little psyched out, and you spoke from across the dressing room. You don't watch these guys practice.
I watched them practice one time. One of the first times I got to play against them was the first time I watched them practice, and I don't believe in watching them because they're great hockey players, they're great playmakers, and they're great skaters, and of course, when nobody's checking them, they're going to be that much faster, so I don't watch them.
You're tired. Good luck in the remaining 2 periods tonight, and of course in the game on Friday. Stay with us. Up next, the Honorable Otto Jelinek. Our first intermission will continue live from Quebec City right after these messages. City, the goal by Yari Curry, the difference so far in the game. Big edge in shots, though, for the National Hockey League 11-5. Joining me is the Honorable Otto Jelinek, our Federal Minister of Sport. And before asking you your reaction to the penalties brought down against our juniors and the Soviets for the brawl in Piashtani, for those people not familiar with it, it basically means all players are prohibited from any international competition, including the Olympics, for 1 year. Now your reaction on it.
Well, Brian, first of all, I think it's grossly unfair, and we can get into the reasons why. And secondly, and perhaps just as importantly, it's unproductive. It doesn't deal with the overall problem with those type of violence episodes that happen not only in hockey but other sports from time to time. And I would think that the International Ice Hockey Federation should come up with a plan that would try to reduce or eliminate this sort of excessive violence in hockey and other sports. So I think they've got a long way to go, and I certainly don't consider this a satisfactory solution, and I say it's unacceptable.
Not only is it tough, but the Soviets acknowledge starting the brawl, and they get the same penalty.
Well, that's the point. That's the unfair factor. The Soviets started it, and they get exactly the same penalty as the Canadians. Besides that, if anyone was supposed to be penalized, it should have been the officials, because they let that game go out of hand, and if we would have had better officiating in that game, that need not have happened. And people just shrug their shoulders and say, well, that's international officiating, but it's about time that something was done about it.
All right, what about a fellow like Steve Nemeth, who was on loan from the Olympic team, and all the other players eligible for the Olympics? They can't play in the Olympics. That seems grossly unfair, as you say. What do you do about it? Constructively, what can you do?
Well, ironically, my counterpart, Mr. Grymov, the Minister of Sport from the Soviet Union, is here and has been in Canada for the last 2 or 3 days. We've been discussing an agenda as to how to improve officiating in the international hockey world, and we're going to be going to the International Ice Hockey Federation in a united effort with specific recommendations to Mr. Sabetsky and others to try to improve this. I personally will be laying complaints to the IHF to say that if you're going to hand out penalties, do it in a fair way, and don't penalize the Canadians the same way as the Soviets when the Canadians did not start the fight.
All right, my good buddy Don Cherry, who's looking in tonight, would say we should simply not go over and take part in the international games, and I have to agree with him in part on this in light of what's happened. If this were not an Olympic year, if the Olympics were not coming to Calgary in the near future, would you recommend staying away from international hockey as a result of this?
Well, Brian, let me put it the other way. We are going to lodge a protest. We are going to come in with the Soviet Union and offer a package of how to improve officiating and the sport of ice hockey internationally. And if the International Ice Hockey Federation does not accept it, then we're going to have to look at step 2 and 3, and we're not eliminating any options at all.
What about Steve Nemeth and the players that want to take part in the Olympics?
We want them to participate on behalf of Canada if Coach Dave King wants them in 1988, and that's something that I'm going to fight for.
Otto, a final quick question. Your Committee on Violence in Sport meets here tomorrow.
Yes, in fact, people like Wayne Gretzky, who you just talked to, and John Beliveau, Russ Jackson, and many others who are on this Fair Play Committee are looking at ways and means of reducing excessive violence in sport, generally speaking, and I think we're moving in the right direction. Happy to see that the NHL is taking some steps in that regard, and I think that's good for the youth of this nation, and that's what it's all about.
Otto, thank you for joining us tonight. The Honorable Otto Jelinek, our Federal Minister of Sport. Stay with us. Rendezvous 87 will continue live on CBC television in just a minute.
NHL leads the Soviet national squad after 20 minutes of play. The goal by Yari Curry, John, and I think we saw in that period one of the advantages of having a unit intact come into an international match such as this.
Well, it obviously was a designed play, Don, simply because Tikkanen dumped it into the opposite corner. He's the left winger. He put it into the right corner. And when that happened, Gretzky was on the fly. Gretzky was not standing still when he dumped it in. It's a turnover, a good play by Tikkanen in the neutral zone. And then Curry, excuse me, they dumped the puck in. And see, Gretzky was on the fly already. Now the line gets together. Gretzky's got the puck. Tikkanen goes to the front of the net. Curry, in motion, gets himself into a shooting spot, open ice, and in one motion, the puck is in the net. Now, that was an excellent play by Curry at center ice to create that turnover. The Soviets thought they were going to be going on the offensive. When that happened, their defensemen were slow in getting control of the puck. Now, look at the defensemen. They're past the blue line. The puck's already dumped in. Gretzky is the first man there with a good forecheck. Curry high in the slot. Blends over, moves towards Gretzky so he can get the puck. On his forehand, Tikkanen in front. Beloshakin had no shot at all. Just an excellent play by that Edmonton Oilers line.
Well, they have the scoring talent on this Team NHL roster. Some were concerned that with the absence of Mark Howe and Paul Coffey, they might be suffering on the blue line. But I thought in the first period they played very well defensively.
Excellent. 5 shots on goal, only 1 shot by a defenseman for the Soviets, but the Team NHL basically kept the quality shots away from Grant Fuhrer. He did make 1 save when 1 Soviet came behind the net and allowed himself the good shot, but their defensemen stood up well. They knocked the Soviets off the puck. I'm really just happy the way they're playing in their own zone. Excellent, smart, strong hockey.
And we're happy to have you providing all this expertise for our coverage of this 2-game series. And live on CBC, this is Rendezvous 87.